Tony. Tony.
I said good morning, Tony.
Okay, no, you won't call me Tony. I'm not those people. You call me Mr. Elumelu or Theory. You won't call me Tony or Chairman. I don't subscribe to that kind of Oyibo life, okay? All right.
Good morning, Mr. Elumelu.
Thank
so my
you.
question is, how do you know if you are to keep going?
Tony Elumelu versus young UBA trainee. Respect, workplace culture, or social intelligence? Hello everyone, welcome to Peter's studio. Today, we are looking at a very interesting and controversial video that has been making the rounds online in Nigeria. It involves prominent Nigerian businessman Tony Elumelu and a young lady who appears to be a newly recruited employee or trainee. The video has generated different reactions. Some Nigerians believe the young lady was disrespectful by addressing Tony Elumelu simply as Tony. Others argue that she may have been following a workplace culture where employees are encouraged to address colleagues and even senior executives by their first name. So, the big question today is, was the young lady being disrespectful, or was she simply following the workplace culture she had been taught? More importantly, what does this incident teach us about professional etiquette, cultural differences, and social intelligence in the Nigerian workplace? Let's examine it carefully.
Tony.
I said good morning, Tony.
Okay, no, you won't call me Tony. I'm not those people. You call me Mr. Elumelu or Theory. You won't call me Tony or Chairman. I don't subscribe to that kind of Oyibo life, okay? All right.
Good morning, Mr. Elumelu.
Thank
so my
you.
question is, how do you know if you are to keep going?
Now, in the video, the young lady greets Tony Elumelu by saying, "Good morning, Tony." Tony immediately corrects her. He tells her that she should not call him Tony and asks her to address him as Mr. Elumelu or by an appropriate title. The exchange was brief, but it generated a huge debate online. Many people immediately interpreted the young lady's action as disrespectful. But before we condemn her, I think there is an important question we need to ask. What if she was simply doing what she had been trained to do? And that is where this story becomes even more interesting. Now, let's take a look at my own personal experience. When I first watched this video, it reminded me of something I experienced early in my work career. There are workplaces where employees are deliberately encouraged to address one another by their first names. You could have a managing director, executive director, manager or supervisors, and the instruction might be call everybody by their first names. No sir, no ma, no mister, no Mrs. At first, this can feel very strange, especially for someone who grew up in an environment where addressing an older person or a superior by the first name could be interpreted as disrespect. So, when I watched this young lady called Tony Elumelu Tony, I did not immediately conclude that she was a rude person. I began to ask, what workplace, what culture had she come from? Now, there have been online claims that the young lady was connected to a UBA training environment. If that information is accurate, it becomes an important part of understanding the situation. The United Bank for Africa has a long-established training and professional development culture for employees and graduate trainees. It is entirely possible that a young employee coming from a corporate training environment would have been taught that first name communication is part of the organization's workplace culture. If someone has spent days or weeks being told, "Don't call me sir, call me by my first name," that instruction can become a professional habit. Then suddenly, the person finds herself in front of one of the most prominent people associated with the organization. She says, "Good morning, sir," and immediately gets corrected. That does not necessarily mean she was intentionally disrespectful. It could simply mean that two different forms of social etiquette collided in one moment. However, the UBA training claim should not be treated as established fact unless the identity of the woman and the circumstances of the encounters are independently confirmed. Let's look at both sides fairly. Side 1. She should have shown respect. Now, this is the argument many Nigerians are making. In Nigerian society, especially in traditional and formal settings, titles matter. When you are speaking to someone significantly older than you, a senior executive, a respected public figure, or an elder, using sir, ma, Mr., or another appropriate title can be considered a sign of respect. For this perspective, the young lady should have recognized the situation and adjusted accordingly. And there is some logic to that argument. Professionalism is not only about knowing the rules of your organization, it is also about knowing how to behave in different environments. Side 2. Workplace culture matters. But there's another side. Some multinational companies and modern corporate environments intentionally create relatively informal workplace culture. In such environment, employees may address senior executives by their first names. The purpose can be to reduce unnecessary hierarchy, encourage communication, and make employees feel comfortable approaching senior management. So if an employee has been trained in that environment, usually the first name may not be intended as an insult. It may actually be the employee's understanding of professional etiquette. This is why it is dangerous to judge the young lady solely from a few seconds of video. Now, the big lesson and context matters. For me, this is the most important part of the entire story. Context really matters. The same actions can have completely different meaning in different environments. Imagine you work in a company where the managing director tells everyone, "Please call me Tony." You do exactly that. Then you attend a formal event and meet another senior person who expects to be called or addressed as Mr. Elumelu. If you continue using the first name culture without adjusting, you may unintentionally offend the person. That is where social intelligence becomes very important. Social intelligence is the ability to understand the person, environment, expectations, and unwritten rules around you and adjust your behavior appropriately. This incident raises an important question. Should we always follow the rules we were taught, or should we learn when to adapt? The best professionals know how to do both. You can respect your organization's culture while also understanding the culture of the particular person or environment you are dealing with. For example, if your office says, "Call everybody by their first name," that may be perfectly acceptable within the office. But if you enter a formal traditional setting where everyone is using titles, you may need to adjust. That isn't hypocrisy, it is situational awareness. Now, was Tony Elumelu wrong? Now, let's consider Tony Elumelu's response. Some people believe he was unnecessarily harsh or embarrassed the young lady. Others believe he was simply establishing how he wanted to be addressed. Personally, I think we should separate two questions. First, was he entitled to establish how people should address him? Of course, yes. Every individual has a right to communicate how they prefer to be addressed, especially in a formal professional environment. Second, could the correction have been handled more gently? That is open to debate, of course. A senior executive correcting a young employee can create an intimidating situation, particularly if the person is inexperienced. A simple "please call me Mr. Elumelu" is not out of place. This would establish the boundary without necessarily making a young person feel publicly embarrassed. But again, the short clip may not provide the entire context. Now, was the young lady wrong? I will also be careful about calling her a disrespectful brat based on this video alone. We don't know how her upbringing was. We don't know exactly what training she received. We don't know the full circumstances surrounding the encounter, and we don't know whether she intended any disrespect. There's a major difference between intentional disrespect and an innocent breach of etiquette. If she deliberately ignored a known instructions about how Tony Elumelu wanted to be addressed, that would be different. But if she genuinely believed that first names communication was the accepted professional culture, then this may simply have been a mistake. There's another lesson here that young Nigerians entering the corporate world should pay attention to. The workplace is becoming increasingly global. You may work with Nigerians, Americans, British people, Indians, Europeans, and Africans from different cultural backgrounds. Their understanding of respect may be completely different. In some cultures, calling a senior executive by their first name is normal. In other cultures, it can be considered extremely disrespectful. Therefore, young professionals need something beyond academic qualifications. They need cultural intelligence. You must learn to read the room, observe how people address one another, listen carefully. When you are uncertain, it is safer to begin formally. You can always become more informal when the person tells you, please call me by my first name. This is also a lesson here for organizations. If a company wants employees to use first name, it should make the boundaries very clear. Employees should understand when first name communication is appropriate, when formal titles should be used, how senior executives prefer to be addressed, how employees should behave at external events, and how to handle cultural differences. Because sometimes what an organization teaches internally may not automatically apply outside that environment. So was the young lady disrespectful? I will not rush to that conclusion. Was Tony Elumelu wrong to correct her? Not necessarily. He has every right to say how he prefers to be addressed. Could the young lady have handled the situation better? Yes. Once she realized that he preferred a formal title, the appropriate response would simply be, I am sorry, Mr. Elumelu, and the matter should end there. But I also think we should be careful about turning a brief workplace interaction into a character judgment against a young person whose background and intentions we don't fully know. For me, the biggest lesson from this viral video is not really about whether somebody said Tony or Mr. Elumelu. The deeper issue is professional adaptability. Know the culture of your organization and understand Nigerian culture. Understand international corporate culture, and most importantly, learn to read the room. You may be completely correct according to the rules you were taught and still find yourself in a situation where those rules do not apply. This is why experience, emotional intelligence, and cultural intelligence are just as important as certificates. And for young professionals watching this video, here is my advice. When in doubt, stay formally. If the person tells you, please call me by my first name, then you can do so. Respect costs you nothing. In conclusion, what do you think? Was the young lady simply following the workplace culture she had been taught? Was Tony Elumelu right to correct her immediately? Or do you believe she should have known better because of Nigerian culture? I want to hear your opinion. Do you think this was disrespect, a simple mistake, or a clash between corporate culture and Nigerian social etiquette? Kindly drop your thoughts in the comment section. If you enjoyed this analysis, please like this video, subscribe to Peter Studio, and share it with others. This is Peter Studio, and I will see you in the next video.